Okay. Morning, everyone. We're going to call this meeting to order at 9:30 of the adoption of the agenda.
That the Council of the Municipality of West Elgin hereby adopts the agenda as presented.
Mover, please. Bill? Michelle? All in favour? Carried. Okay, so bylaw 2023-38 appointment bylaw.
That bylaw number 2023-38, being a bylaw to appoint Richard Leatham as mayor of the Municipality of West Elgin, be read a first, second, and third and final time.
A mover, please. Bill? Michelle? All in favour? It's carried. Thank you. Adoption of the minutes.
That the minutes of the regular council meeting on May 11th, 2023, and the special council meeting on May 18th, 2023, be adopted as circulated and printed.
Okay, Michelle has moved and Teresa has seconded. All in favour? It's carried. Thank you. Now Heather has an announcement to make.
I would like to make a note and a correction to the April 27th council meeting minutes. Jana Nethercott was not in attendance at this meeting as was indicated. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Businesses arising from the minutes. Seeing none. A disclosure of any pecuniary interest, if not now, at the time. Seeing none again. Presentation. The Lower Thames Valley Conservation Authority. Inventory of programs and service agreement. Welcome, Mark and Valerie. Welcome to West Elgin. Nice to see you.
And I feel privileged to refer to you as Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Mayor, members of council, thank you very much for inviting us today. There is a presentation that will go through this work is part of a number of bills that have not only affected the Conservation Authority, but affected you at the municipality that provincial government has put through in the last couple of years. So Bill 229 and Bill 23 have significantly affected how conservation authorities are run. And because of that, we have a lot of work put on us to come into compliance with those bills. And one of those things is the work that I'm going to talk about today. And how it affects the relationship between us at the Conservation Authority and how we levy a municipality for money to do the work that we do. So if we can go to the second slide. So the province is required that we take all our services and we list them all and we put them into different categories. And I'll talk about the categories as we go along. And those categories are defined as either being mandatory or non-mandatory by the province. And the province has its own narrative of what the conservation authorities are all about. It's not true. The conservation authorities have always been set up to be a body that works with local communities to make our watersheds better. So we work with the people, we work with individual residents. Every year we do about 250 projects with individual residents to do things that make the watershed better for their kids and their grandkids. And that's what we're all about. Now, we do protect people from flooding and stuff, but that's not why conservation authorities were set up in 1946. Actually, we were set up to deal with men coming back from the war and planting trees and stuff like that. That's one of the reasons they were concerned. The government was concerned that a lot of soldiers that were demobbed didn't have anything to do. So one of the things they could do is plant trees. And that's one of the reasons conservation authorities were set up. But the province has said that we're really set up to deal with natural hazards. And that's their take on us. It's not our history, but it is something we do. And it's an important thing we do, that we do protect people from flooding and that. So what they've asked is that we create this inventory of everything that we do, and we categorize it based on the way they think we should categorize our programs. So this is a living document, and one of the challenges we have is much of the money we get is because we apply for grants for things. So when we do work on somebody's property, we use 5 cents of LTDCA money and 95 cents of 18 other groups' money. So we apply for the federal government money, we apply for all these types of things. There's only a little bit of money that's municipal money that goes into that. But so it really changes year to year. So this inventory of our programs changes, and what we've tried to do is give you an average over a long time so that you kind of understand how we bundle out the money we get from municipalities over the long term. Next slide. So the categories are this first category they call mandatory, and that's flooding and erosion, some of the basic things in our conservation areas, and source water protection. And that's actually not the majority of work we do. The majority of work we do is things like stewardship, working on people's properties, planting trees. We're planting nearly 100,000 trees this spring. We're just about done. And we do that in hundreds of properties across and across your municipality as well. We do education programs. We have First Nations, you're probably aware of the Longwoods Road, Scanado Village, where we have First Nations educators that teach kids from across, once again, across your municipality and across all of Elgin. And so the way they do it is they define these mandatory programs, which are the ones that say we have to do. Then there's category 2 and 3. Category 2 is where municipalities come to us and said, we want you to do something. And we don't have a lot of that. We have a bunch of that in Chatham. So we have a Chatham greening program to deal with deforestation in Chatham. We have a program also to deal with channelization and dike works in Chatham. But most of them are programs category 3, which are the programs that when we come to you and we talk about a budget, those are the programs that we sell to municipalities saying, this is good for the watershed, will you support it? And then we get the levy to do that. So with category 1, we don't need your approval. We can levy you, period. With category 2 and 3, we need your approval. We need an agreement. Ultimately, in the end, this doesn't mean that much to us. If we had a municipality that said, we have huge problems with your budget, we would change our budget. And we've been very we believe we've been responsible, and you know, you can tell us, but we've been responsible with money. Now, with the Lower Thames Conservation Authority in the last 5 years, we are the lowest levying increases of any Southwestern Conservation Authority. Our increase is about 15% over the last 5 years. The next lowest is almost twice that. So we have been trying to be very responsible as we move forward with money. Next slide. So what we have to do is we have to change our budget entirely now. So we have to restate all our budget and redo all our financials to match these category 1, 2, and 3. Because we have to show what money's going where and that we have agreements with municipalities to get the category 2 and 3. And so what this inventory is leading to is an agreement with you as a municipality to allow us to levy you for that money. So every year you give us around 61 or 62,000. I think that's about where we are right now. And out of that, 9% of that is non-mandatory. So, and one of the reasons is things like stewardship, most of that money is money we get from grants and stuff. We don't use a lot of municipal money for many of our non-mandatory programs. Our education program, we charge kids to do it. Our conservation area parks, like campgrounds, we make money on that. That's what keeps the rest of the conservation area open is the camping fees that we charge. So they're out of 1.7 million of levy, there's about 170,000 of that is non-mandatory. So it's less than 10%. It's about 9.01% that is non-mandatory. So what we have to do is we need to have an agreement with you for those category 2 and 3 things. Next slide. So what we did in setting up this we have made the assumption that we are not going to transfer money where we're making money into other programs to prop them up. So we use the money in a conservation area where it's generated to keep that conservation area going. We're not going to cut down that conservation area. For one thing, we'll cut down the revenue if we do, but we are going to use that money to maintain those programs that we have. So that's one of the assumptions. So next slide. So out of all the money we get, and last year we had a budget of about 4 million. The actual was over 5 million because we actually generated over $1 million more grants and revenues than was projected, and we often do. And it's because we are conservative. When we apply for stuff, we don't assume we're going to get it until we get it. So often you'll see our actuals in our budget or in our statements are significantly more than our budgeted numbers, but we cannot make assumptions as we move forward. So we get special levies like the flood control structure and the greening program in Chatham-Kent, and then we get provincial funding. And I just want, the Section 39 is the base funding we get, and CMOG is the museum grant we get. So we have a $5 million budget. We get $80,000 from the province for that Section 39, and I think it's 24,000 to the museum. So the total money we get from the province out of a $5 million actual is around $100,000. So they're not the partner they once were. Let's put it that. We used to get 50% of our money from the province at one time. Next slide, please. So this is what the inventory looks like. And you would have got this last fall, 2022 February. And it goes through actually in the one column there is every single account. So we go through all our accounts in our general ledger. We break out how those accounts reflect these categories, these mandatory and category 2 and 3 programs. And then on the far side, we show you where the money comes from to make that happen. And even in our mandatory programs, we do generate some revenue, but it shows you how that all works out. And this is sort of the basis of letting our municipalities know exactly how we spend money. Now, we are a little bit different than some conservation authorities, but every two months in our package that gets sent to you, we do a full breakdown of where we are in our budget and what is spent and what the forecasts are in our budget. So we do 6 times a year, we do a full accounting to our municipalities on our money. Next slide. So what we want to do is develop this agreement with our municipalities. And what we're asking is that you not pick apart all the different programs. And I'll give you the reason behind this is if West Elgin says, I won't give you $100 for this, and then Southwest Middlesex says, I won't give you $200 for this, all of a sudden, all the programs start falling apart because our 10 municipalities, all the money goes into one pot for a program. And it's death by 1,000 cuts if we go down that road. So what we're asking is that you consider approving our budget as a whole, that hopefully you're satisfied with the services that we provide, and that in this agreement it's a provision for approval of the category 2 and 3, which is around 6,200, I think, for like in this year's budget. That provide all those services that are not quote mandatory from the province. So that's what we're asking. And we're using, we have, Southwest Middlesex has 5 conservation authorities. And one of the problems is there are very few municipalities without 1 or 2. And you have 2, right? No, 1? Oh, you're one of the few in Ontario that only has 1 conservation authority. Yes, that's right. Southwold has 2. What we're trying to do is try to get one agreement across Southwestern Ontario. So these municipalities that have 5 conservation authorities weren't looking at 5 different things. So all conservation authorities are Southwestern Ontario are coming to their municipalities with the same idea, that we just get an agreement. And if we aren't being responsible, then we'll answer for that. But we get an agreement for that funding. And we're using the Sauble Bayfield example. And it's because we worked with them to develop that, and Southwest Middlesex has approved that. So we want to make sure, and they're one of our municipalities as well. So that's how we're doing it. And Essex region is using the same one. St. Clair is using the same one. Kettle is using one a little bit different, but pretty close. Next slide. So the agreement, and it's like, it's a moving target. And it has been for the last 2 years. As these new regulations roll and as new legislation comes in, things change. It's like us being prohibited from commenting on natural heritage items to the municipality. So part one of the regulations says you are prohibited from commenting on these 9 pieces of legislating, and you're actually prohibited from even reviewing them. So that changed what we do as well. So it's a bit of a moving thing. Our agreement has to change as that changes. So actually at our last board meeting, the changes that were required for Bill 23 went through. They were very minor, but we had to make sure they were in there, and our board approved them so that we could then go to municipalities with this draft agreement. Next slide. So we're hoping that you will look at the agreement. It's relatively simple. It just says it's a 5-year agreement. We agree to work together on our levy. It has a provision that says if anytime you want to renegotiate, you can say, okay, we're done. We need to sit down and relook at this. So there is a provision in that agreement to do that. And we hope that you consider our request. So thank you very much. And hopefully I've explained the agreement. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions from council? Yes.
Through the chair, thank you for your presentation. I guess what my question is this being done so that municipalities are going to be the ones who cut funding and then slowly shrink conservation areas in Ontario? Is that like, it seems to me what the government is trying to do is to make us on council the bad guys because it's budget. And so what they're hoping to do is to make it so you as conservation experts are only doing the mandatory flood and not the other stuff. Would that be a correct assumption in this?
That would be correct in an attempt. The Lower Thames Conservation Authority is still very much dedicated to making our watersheds better. We're very much dedicated to working with local communities to do environmental work. So whatever the province says, they can say. And the other thing is we have found that all our municipalities are supporting us. I don't think you will be the bad guys. I think you will be actually the good guys in the end, because we have to deal with the environment differently given what we're seeing in climate change. And as we move forward, it's the wrong time to cut environment. And we need development. Sure, we need more houses. We need all those types of things. But let's do it wisely so it isn't going to cost us a huge amount in the future to deal with houses in floodplains and stuff like that. And let's make sure that we have a world that's worth living in the next 30 or 40 years as we do the good things that we need to do to make our environment resilient. And I'm sorry, I'm going on, but one of the things about doing flooding, you can't do flooding if you don't do the rest of the stuff. The reason that we plant trees is as much for the birds and bees as it is for the people that live beside the dikes at the bottom end of the Thames River. Those dikes carry 900 meters cubed per second. Anything more than that, we flood 2 townships. And the only way of making sure 900 meters cubed per second go down the Thames River is by building wetlands, planting trees, doing all those things that hold the water on the landscape. And so the government's saying that you can do flooding without doing the rest. They don't understand how watershed works. And so I think in the long run, I believe you're right with purpose, but I don't believe that will affect what we do because we're dedicated to our communities and to the environment.
Yeah, thank you. I can just imagine if people just left a free hand to put houses wherever they wish, it would be an absolute disaster. You know, with climate change and with everything else, and we know what comes to the Lower Thames anyway. People are trying to put houses lower than what the water table is almost. So, you know, and no access to roads if there comes a flood. So if there's a fire or anything like that, no access, you know, and people don't sort of think of those type of things. And the Conservation Authority does. and that's a good thing. Thanks for what you do. Anyone else? Well, I thank you very much for your presentation. It's very interesting.
Mr. Mayor, I believe there's a copy of the agreement with staff. And it'll be
If you'll
there
leave it, please.
for you to consider. Thank you.
Okay, man. Thank you very much. We're going to take just a few minutes break while I'm taking a break for while I go.
So I sign both, return one, and then that's yours.
No, leave it.
Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Valerie. Okay, we'll start again. Okay, we're off again. We'll go to 8, a public meeting. Recommendation, please.
That council proceed into a public meeting pursuant to section 34 of the Planning Act in order to hear an application to rezone property located at 21179 Clatham Road.
A mover, please. Bill, Michelle, all in favour? It's carried. The purpose of the public meeting, please.
Purpose of the zoning bylaw amendment is to consider a condition of consent application E1-23 by rezoning the retained farmland parcel from general agricultural A1 zone to agricultural A2 zone in order to prohibit any future dwellings, and by rezoning the severed surplus farm dwelling parcel from general agricultural A1 zone to restricted agricultural A3 zone in order to recognize the new surplus farm dwelling lot being created. Council will not make a decision on the application at this public meeting. Based on the recommendation and information received at this public meeting, an amending bylaw will be presented to council in the bylaw portion of the regular meeting of council. The planner is keeping a public registry, and if any member of the public wishes to be notified in writing of the decision on this application, they can provide their name and mailing address via email to planning@westelvin.net or by calling 519-785-0560, extension 226, no later than 4 p.m. on the day of the public meeting. A person or public body may appeal a decision if they have made an oral or written submission at today's meeting. If you wish to make an oral submission during this public meeting, please use the raise your hand feature in Zoom, and the clerk will allow you to speak when the call is put out for public comments.
Okay, so we go to 8.2, planning report. Morning, Robert.
Morning, Mr. Mayor, Council.
If we could carry on, please.
Certainly. The application is fairly straightforward. This is the second part of a severance application. The Land Division Committee addressed this back in March of this year and approved severance of the lot. One of those conditions, as with all surplus dwelling severances, is a rezoning of both the remnant farm parcel to prohibit future dwellings and also to address the new non-farm use of the severed lot. Although this is not all that unusual for West Elgin, the lot itself, the home itself is located quite some distance from the road, as I'm finding many are, necessitating flag-shaped lots or hammerhead lots in order to minimize the loss of farmland and not create overly large lots. As such, the one anomaly in this application would be that the rezoning of the lot itself, the severed lot itself, requires us to recognize not just the non-farm use, but also the reduced lot frontage. The minimum typically is 30 meters or 100 feet in this case. They've just left 20 feet or 6 meters at the road, just enough to accommodate a corridor for both access to the dwelling and servicing that comes from the road, hydro gas, et cetera, that goes up a laneway. So it is consistent with provincial policy in both of the official plans at the county level and at the local level. The application also, in this particular instance, is located in an area where there is potential for mineral aggregate, essentially gravel. That was assessed as part of the consent application. And it was deemed that there wasn't enough economically viable gravel located on the property for there to be any impact related to the severance of the dwelling. As such, unless there's questions from the public or council, that is all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much. Applicant comments, is there any? Nothing showing, no. So I'll ask again, applicant comments? No. Public comments? So we go to council comments. Any comments by council? Seeing none. The recommendation then, please. Who's that? Sorry?
Tim Van Lith, the applicant.
Okay. Let him carry on. Yeah. So, any comments from the applicant?
Yes, council, can you hear me?
Yes, we can now. Thank you.
Yes, sorry about that. Yes, thank you, Robert. I don't really have any comments. Thank you for the consideration. And just one question. So this is going to a bylaw. So is this going to be addressed in this meeting or another meeting?
It will be addressed in this meeting.
Okay, thank you very much. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. So now can we go to the recommendation, please?
We'll have two.
Yep.
So the first recommendation is that the Council of the Municipality of West Elgin hereby receives the report from Robert Brown Planner regarding zoning bylaw amendment application D-14 6-2023 recommendation report, planning report 2023-20.
Mover, please. Teresa. Michelle, seconded. All in favour? It's carried. And you're going to close the public meeting? Two more.
That the Council of the Municipality of West Elgin approve the rezoning of 21179 Clafton Road from General Agricultural A1 Zone to Agricultural A2 Zone and Restricted Agricultural Special Regulation 6 A3-6 zone in accordance with the attached draft bylaw, and further that the Council of the Municipality of West Elgin consider the bylaw to amend the zoning bylaw as presented in the bylaw portion of the May 25th, 2023 council agenda.
Okay, a mover, please. Bill and Teresa seconded. All in favour? It's carried. Now to close the public meeting.
That the Council of the Municipality of West Elgin hereby adjourns the public meeting held pursuant to Section 34 of the Planning Act at 10 a.m.
Okay, a mover, please. To close the meeting. Bill. Seconder. Teresa, all in favour? It's carried. Consent agenda. A lot of reading again. Any questions, anyone? On that, no? Okay, so you didn't,
We just would like to point out that West Elgin has compliance in 2022 for Emergency Management Ontario. That's quite a feat for staff. And so we just wanted to point that out. That's in the consent agenda.
okay, so that's that complete. Thank you. So we're going on to, you don't,
Just do the recommendation.
yeah, okay,
That the consent agenda for May 25th, 2023 be received and filed.
okay. Michelle moved, Tressa seconded, all in favour, it's carried. So we're going on to 10.1, operations and community services. Lee? It's about Downey Line paving request report, please.
Yep. Good morning, Mr. Mayor and members of council. So I wanted to prepare this report for information purposes for council. I know that some members of the council have been approached about a request for hard surface of a portion of Downey Line west of Furnival Road. It was mentioned in the request that it be for a few hundred meters. So in the picture that you can see in your report, I've kind of laid out there what 300 feet would look like from the apron off of Furnival Road, which would take you down to the first house, to the first residential house just west of Furnival. Alternatively, there are lots that are across there. There's one other house just west of that on the south side, and there's 3 building lots there that currently don't have any houses on them. And then, of course, the 2 businesses right at the corner of Furnival and Downey. So I guess everybody's had a chance to read the information. Option 1 here shows the request for the first few hundred feet. Option 2 shows what it would look like if we extended that down to 22255 Downey Line, which would cover those additional building lots. As I said in the report, traditionally that this road has always been treated as all other gravel roads in the municipality. It's graded spring and fall, and when needed, it has dust control applied to it in the spring once the spring grading is done. So you know, as far as summer maintenance costs go for, if we were to hard surface this, it's not going to be any savings. We're still going to grade the majority of that road, and we're still going to apply dust suppressant. That grader's still going to have to travel that road to do the work, and the truck's still going to have to travel that little tiny section to apply the dust suppressant to the rest of it. So summer maintenance costs really here don't come into play as any huge savings. What I do want to point out with requests like this, 2 things. Winter maintenance, it does pose a problem for us, because now when you put down asphalt or surface treatment on this very tiny section of road, the grader cannot service that for ice control measures. So now we have a truck that normally would just go past on Furnival Road as it travels along. It's going to have to turn on to Downey Line, and it's going to have to travel west on Downey to service this little tiny piece to plow and apply product. It's going to very likely have to drive all the way to Blacks Road, which is 3.7 kilometers, to turn around to come back to service the other side coming up, leading up to the stop sign. And then back onto Furnival Road and carry on. So, you know, effectively it travels that whole block, that whole concession to service 100 meters of hard surface. So that's, it's not a good use of time for us. You know, it costs more in fuel, it costs in material. The grader, when the grader goes out to plow the snow on Downey Line, it comes down Fernville Road, it turns and heads down Downey Line. So it's still going to cover that little portion of hard surface. So now you have two pieces of equipment basically having to cover the same section of road because part of it is hard surface and the rest of it is gravel. So, you know, as I've said in my report here, I don't feel that having this little portion as hard surface is economically or operationally advantageous for us. The other thing that we have to consider here is that council needs to consider is future requests. If this is a request to hard surface this for you know, concerns of dust or that type of thing, then, you know, when you receive a request, you know, a year from now from another business on another gravel road somewhere in the municipality that has concerns with dust or with, you know, potholes in the gravel, you know, that's something that you're going to have to consider. If you do it for one, you know, you have to, it's a slippery slope. So anyways, you know, I would say that this stretch of road is a gravel road. Down the road with, you know, if there's a community improvement program or something that comes in, you know, if it was a whole stretch, like a 3.7 kilometer stretch, doing the whole concession would be better than doing a small portion. We have a couple of these from years gone by throughout the municipality where we have a small block that's been surface treated, and operationally it's very difficult for us to manage that. So if council has any questions, I would be more than happy to answer them.
Michelle.
Through the chair, I think last time we had a conversation about a residential request for street paving. Lee, correct me if I'm wrong. You said that there are certain roads and there are certain cars that need to be driving by it, that we have kind of a checklist as to why we would pave certain roads. Does this road fall into any of those kind of high needs, high use?
This road certainly has more traffic on it than the last request that we received. The request, if you remember, was for Blacks Road north of Johnston Line. That was for a whole section of road. So Blacks Road from Johnson all the way to Fleming, which, like I said earlier, you know, a whole section is easier for us to maintain than a small part section like this. This section does have more traffic on it. I mean, there are vehicles that use this probably to access the landfill on days that it's open, some vehicles. But I don't see the need for having this section
And
hard surface.
was it just a resident who's asked for this, or like what was the logic thinking? I have not heard it, so just the dust.
It's been a resident, or it was a request from a resident that lives on Downey Line. But the resident that lives on Downey Line that made the request, this, although they would travel this small section, it does not front their property.
Okay, thank you.
And go on, Bill.
Through the chair, thanks for the report, Lee. So certainly familiar with that stretch, and that there's a fairly new business on the corner that has expressed concerns with dust. Your report is well understood with regards to the community improvement grants that may come in the future. Would this stretch of Downey Line from Fernville to Blacks Lane, would it be considered top of the list if for the next community grant that we received? Meaning, if we did receive another community improvement grant, would Downey Line be the first one that we would look at?
Yes, through the chair. So I'm not really, I guess, to clarify, I'm not suggesting a community improvement grant. What I'm suggesting is a community improvement program, such like a water line, you know, where residents on a section of road want municipal water down the road. That's done, you know, through a community improvement program whereby the residents pay for that capital cost of putting that water line down that section of road. So it's not, I'm not suggesting that we are applying for grant money to do this based on municipal costs. I'm saying that if, you know, down the road, if there were enough people on that whole stretch of road that wanted that road hard surfaced, there could be a cost, just like a water line, where it's going to be X number of dollars per property. And, you know, that road gets done as part of that community improvement. So that's what I'm suggesting for this, much the same as a water line.
One follow-up through the chair. So the work that is proposed to be done on Black's Lane to connect one hard surface to another hard surface, what sort of program was that?
That program was an ICIP grant program. The bulk of that work for that, when we applied for that grant, although it will be, the end result will be connecting a hard surface to a hard surface. The bulk of that was for infrastructure work to the bridge and the culvert that are on that road. So that was probably 75 to 80% of the cost of that program. It was to deal with those two pieces of infrastructure that needed to be replaced.
Okay, and anything else? I just find that if a road is only partly tarmacked and you get cars going down at a little faster rate, and then all of a sudden they hit the gravel, sometimes not very good. So I'd rather see a road going tarmacked right the way through so we can make circles, like Lee said. A lot safer, and it's more economical for our men to maintain. Okay, Tress.
Through the chair, thank you so much, Lee, for bringing this report. Hopefully all the information laid out will satisfy the resident as to their request and what they were looking for. Yeah, I just personally don't see it being something feasible that we should be doing. But yeah, it's great that you've laid this all out for us and all the information. And I do agree that it would set a precedent. That's what I was thinking when I forwarded it. But yeah, eventually maybe we can do the project like you're saying and attach tarmac to tarmac. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So a recommendation, please.
That the Council of the Municipality of West Elgin hereby receives the report from Lee Gosnell, Manager of Operations and Community Services, re Downey Line paving request for information purposes.
The mover. Michelle. Bill, seconded. All in favour? It's carried. Okay, the next is 10.2, Financial Administration. CEO Treasurer. Magna. Borrowing bylaw report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good morning, Council. So basically borrowing bylaw this is something that you're going to see every year. Last 3 years, I did not present council with the report, as this is a recurring bylaw every year that we have to pass. And basically the purpose of this bylaw is to provide council to provide council with the purpose of an approval. Basically, we're asking council to, we have to establish a temporary borrowing. And the reason for it is our cash flow at the end of the calendar year tend to be low. As all the expenses, all the operating expenses have to be paid, payments to the county and school boards have to be made. So that basically we, at the end of the calendar year, we drain our bank account. In our situation, we in the past, we've been very lucky and We never had to borrow additional funds, but this is just in case unexpected happens. We have to have an option with council's approval to basically go to the bank and ask for temporary short-term financing to cover our operating expenses. So this bylaw refers to section 407-1 of the Municipal Act. And basically that section governs that anytime during a fiscal year, municipality may authorize temporary borrowing until the taxes are collected and other revenues are received of the amounts that the municipality considers necessary to meet the expenses of the municipality for the year until interim or final bills generate cash flows. Also, section 407-2 of the Municipal Act governs the upper limits on the amounts the municipality can borrow. So there are strict deadlines prescribed by the Municipal Act. So from January 1st to September 30th, we can, borrowing amount is limited to 50% of total revenue of our municipality. And then from October 1st to December 31st, we can only borrow 25% of the total revenues for our municipality. So basically, the municipality of West Elgin is required to pass borrowing bylaw each year in order to have funds made available by our bank. So, if the short-term borrowing is required, the treasurer will report to council prior to borrowing. In addition, this type of borrowing has not been required in the past. So we've never approached the banks in the past, to get necessary funds. Does anybody have any questions?
Yes. Bill.
Through the chair. So we are essentially required to look at this and update this this bylaw each year. From your opinion, do we have any short-term needs to borrow, or this is just an update to this bylaw?
No, this is just an update to this bylaw. I don't anticipate any borrowing this year.
Any more questions? Recommendation then, please.
That the Council of the Municipality of West Elgin hereby receives the report from Magda Bedura, CAO Treasurer, reborrowing bylaw for information purposes.
Move it, please. Bill? Michelle? All in favour? It's carried. 10.2.2. CAO Treasurer. Magna?
Yep.
Bedura? Of a drain debenture report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this is another report. So it's been a while since we offered any debentures to our property owners. It's been, I believe, 4 years since last debenture was issued. So basically what it is, over the years, municipality of West Elgin would borrow money on behalf of the property owners to fund specific projects. This one in particular is the capital project for drain installation. So basically, we are the municipality that is borrowing money on behalf of the property owners. So the idea is, number one, so our municipality can distribute the cost of infrastructure projects across the community more equitably. And basically, it's since these projects provide long-term benefits to property owners, we're helping them to spread that financial burden over a number of years instead of them paying the lump sum amount. This particular situation, RVI Developments is fully benefiting from that project. So full cost is allocated to their property. Therefore, they're responsible to pay the full amount. At the same time, we're taking over the infrastructure. So basically, we offer them to spread that significant amount over a number of years. And in this particular situation, the property owner agreed to spread this amount over 5 years with the interest that is associated with it. So there is a bylaw attached in the agenda. And basically the agreement between us and Salus Insurance, because Salus is basically lending the money to the municipality at this point. So we have an agreement associated with that as well.
Okay, any questions on that? No, I've seen none. The recommendation, please.
That the Council of the Municipality of West Elgin hereby receives the report from Magda Badura, CAO Treasurer, Arvi Drain debenture report, and that the Council of the Municipality of West Elgin approves a loan in the amount of $35,381.12 from Salus Mutual.
A mover, please. Bill? Shall, all in favour? It's carried. 10.2.3. CAO Treasurer, procurement policy updates, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So basically in my report, I provided council with the summary why we need to revise purchasing policy from time to time. But at the same time, staff reviewed the purchasing policy and we did not make too many changes. The only item, let me just. So basically, when staff reviewed this policy, paragraph 2.06 was added to the policy. So, and basically it refers to the accessibility policy. So that paragraph, in deciding to purchase goods or services through the purchasing process for the use of itself, its employees, or the public, council, to the extent possible, shall have regard to the accessibility for persons with disabilities to the goods or services. So that paragraph was added. We have also, because our organizational structure has changed, the word under definitions, supervisor was added, as well as managers. And in 3.02, we have basically under limitations, we added paragraph in item B that the procurement dollar value thresholds, approved authority, method of procurement, and reporting requirements have been established and are presented in attachment A, and which is attached to this report. And then item C, attachment A, are considered to be the minimum standard and will become more formal and complex as the requirements and or estimated value of the goods or services increase. So those two paragraphs have been added, as well as under attachment A, the limits that dollar amount limits have been revised. So in our current policy, list limits as from up to $5,000, superintendent, treasurer, and fire chief have authority to approve the purchase, as long as it's within the approved budget, from between $5,001 to $10,000. CAO and treasurer has the authority to approve the purchase based on 3 written quotes. And anything over $10,000 requires council's approval. So those are tenders and requests for proposal. All items that are listed have to be approved in the budget unless separately approved by council. So basically, in our revised policy, I am proposing different amounts. I'm asking council to provide us with the permission and approve this new revised policy, as the reason for it is that it creates a lot of work. So basically, if there is a required purchase and that item has been approved in our budget, asking council to revise purchasing policy and give staff authority to move on with the project if it's less than $20,000. If it's between $20,000 and $50,000, this would require CAO and treasurer approval, but it has to be supported by 3 quotes, and it does not require council's approval, separate approval, unless is not in the budget. If it's $50,000 or less for consulting or professional services, and it's part of our current year's budget, CAO and treasurer should have authority to move on with this project, and anything greater than $50,000 would require council's authorization and request for proposal or request for tender. The reason I'm asking to change this policy and change the limits, dollar value limits, is I have counted, we have approximately 15 capital projects ranging from $10,000 to $50,000. According to our current policy, anything above $10,000 requires request for proposal or request for tender. If staff needs to write this type of proposal, we will not be able to get through 15 capital projects this year. And there's going to be a significant delay in completing these projects. So this is basically staff's reasoning. It creates a lot of burden, additional work for our staff. And what I'm proposing for the projects, for the capital projects of $50,000 or less in value, I would like council's permission for staff to collect quotes only, not go with the request for proposal process.
Questions from council? Bill, please.
Through the chair. So I see that this policy was implemented back in 2004. So this update comes 15 years later, and clearly costs associated with services have increased. So it does not appear to me to be a real significant change if you factor in the fact that inflation has certainly impacted the cost of all things. So that's just my 2 cents.
Through
Yes.
the chair, I second Bill's notion on that. My question, and it's more for putting in the thought and for staff, having talked to a number of members in our community who do get quotes. I'm wondering if in Ontario, there exists in any municipalities, a recommendation or something in the procurement policy that gives local businesses an edge. My reason for asking that is that for us to do business in West Elgin costs more than it costs to do business in, say, Chatham. It costs more for us for our water bills, our taxes, buying supplies at the hardware store. And so I don't think it's a today thing, but I'm very curious about how we as a municipality can be creating a policy that shows support to those businesses in our community that are paying taxes, who employ members of our community, and ultimately more of their dollars stay here. And so if we're always looking at the very lowest price, sometimes that's not the best decision for us as a community. So I would just be curious to see if any other municipalities have started to look at a buy local initiative.
That's a good point. Bill?
Through the chair, I think I read in the report that there was a clause in there about attempting to give local companies priority.
Through the chair, if there is project that we know that there might be an interest in our community, we certainly contact them either through email or we send an ad in the paper. It is anything that is not in a specialized nature is usually advertised on social media, our electronic signs, or our local newspaper. If the project is specialized in nature, staff tends to contact the vendors directly.
Through the chair, and just clarification, I do realize that, but often it is in all municipalities, it be the lowest quote is usually the winner. And where I'm trying to suggest in often rural towns, it's very hard for our small businesses with the higher overhead to compete with the lowest price. And so I'm wondering if there has been anything in other municipalities that accounts for that. I'm not suggesting that we pay a tremendously higher amount for someone local. But I do know, for example, in London, when they are looking for parking lot attendants or people to take over parking lots, as an example, that it's a score out of 100 that the companies who are bidding get ranked on, and price is a portion of that mark. Like I said, it's not something I'm expecting for this. I'm just putting it forward that I would be curious. We have to start finding ways to support locally. And sometimes we just can't compete with the lowest price if we are also looking at China, Toronto, like the bigger cities, and bringing things in. It's impossible for some of our local suppliers to get to a price that low.
Yeah, I can see your point on that one. You know, if the prices are very, very close, and even if they are just slightly more, but if they're local people, then I think that should be taken into account.
We will certainly investigate that.
Yeah, and I believe in RFPs and in tenders for West Elgin, it says lowest tender not necessarily accepted. So I think that, we can look into that and see if we can incorporate that into the quote system.
Okay, Trish, did you have anything to say? Or?
Yes, through the chair. Are those amounts that you're proposing, Magda, within the procurement policy for other municipalities? Is that within the range? That's the current norm?
Yes, so we compared our current policy with 3 other municipalities, and we're within that same range.
Okay, and is there going to be a communication of some sort when staff goes ahead and approves something? Because a lot of time I'll have a resident come to me and say, well, what happened with, I can't give the example right now, but what happened with, a certain project, what happened with that? And we won't know because it'll be under that certain amount that we currently have in our procurement policy. So if it gets raised, there'll probably be more projects and more things. And is there some way that we can also attach communication to that? So we're aware of what's going on. It doesn't look like we're not engaged as a council.
We can certainly, if council feels comfortable, and we can certainly develop a reporting process for council's information with any amounts between $10,000 and maybe $50,000 for information only, that this, we received basically quotes, list of the companies that submitted their quotation amounts, and the reason why staff chose that particular vendor. We can certainly accommodate council with that.
Thank you.
Sure,
I
that
think
would be great.
that'd
Thank you.
useful. Yeah, I think that'd be very useful for council to have. Okay, so if the questions are finished, can I have the recommendation, please?
So the Council of the Municipality of West Elgin hereby receives the report from Magda Badura, CAO Treasurer, Procurement Policy Revisions, and that the Council of the Municipality of West Elgin approves revisions to the Purchasing Policy and Procedure AD-1.2.
Okay, can I move her? Michelle? Seconder, Teresa? All in favour? Carried. Okay, I think we'll go to a short break just for 5 minutes. Okay? Is that all right, madam? Okay. I've got a frog in myself. He's been there all morning. I'm gonna have a coffee just for a minute.
You need water?
Right, so it's. Five to cars coming out. Gosh, it's like. The temple seems much more. Both sides.
Okay, we're going to start again, okay? So it's 10.2.4, CAO Treasurer, Video Surveillance Policy and Procedure Report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this is another item. This policy is very new to our municipalities. So as council recalls, security cameras have been approved in our 2023 budget. We just finished installation of keyless access and security cameras in West Lawn on the fire hall. So basically, the reason why we started with West Lawn Fire Hall is because number one, we wanted to install keyless access. That was in the budget. And since the company was there and had to do extra wiring for keyless access, and we took advantage of it, and we asked them to run additional wires for the security cameras, and they were the ones that we were purchasing the security cameras. So the cameras are now installed on the building. They're on the outside. There are 3 cameras. So now they're not live, they're not turned on, as we don't have approved security cameras policy. That's why this policy was brought to council's attention. Quick summary about the policy. So basically the policy states that the municipality of West Elgin recognizes the importance of balancing privacy rights with the safety and security of its employees, clients, visitors, and property. The policy was developed in accordance with the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act, and governs the use of video surveillance system at municipally owned and leased properties. The policy outlines that video surveillance should be justified based on specific incidents of crime or safety concerns, and other deterrent measures should be considered first. Basically, the design and operation of the surveillance system should minimize privacy situation, and sound should only be recorded if directly related to potential problems. So there will be, we're not planning on recording sound. The policy specifies guidelines for installing cameras, controlling access to equipment and records, providing notice to the public about the use of video surveillance, and handling access requests. The CAO is responsible for policy compliance, system evaluations, approving camera installations, and overseeing day-to-day operations. Staff members are prohibited from accessing or using surveillance information for personal reasons and must adhere to this policy. The policy also addresses the retention and disposal of video records, access requests from law enforcement agencies, custody and control of records, and procedures for handling unauthorized access or privacy breaches. The CAO is responsible for reporting privacy breaches and taking corrective actions. So this policy, as any other policy, is subject to review every 2 years. It is recommended that this policy be reviewed every 2 years, as it's a fairly new policy. And basically, CAO will provide council with recommendations for updates down the road. Does anybody have any questions?
Obviously, there's a cost to this,
It's
and you know, depending on how many buildings or obviously or wherever you put it, but you know, have you got a rule of thumb that it may cost?
So the cost was approved by council, so $20,000 to council approved towards security cameras, and we're not planning exceeding that amount.
Bill?
Through the chair, just to follow up on what Richard said, is there an ongoing software cost to this? And that's all in the budget?
It's all in the budget, and it's part of software. The cost is being captured under building and maintenance in each facility. And basically that's for the keyless access control. We do pay monthly fee for that service, as well as we are responsible for paying for cloud-based software to access the system.
Through the chair,
Yeah,
but
sure.
we should also in turn see some of our insurance rates go down, because usually cameras and keypads are something that they would look at, correct?
Hopefully, that I cannot guarantee, but I will reach out to our insurance company
sure.
and let them know that the security cameras have been installed as it happens.
Anyone else with a comment? Seeing none, can I have the recommendation, please?
If there's one more thing I would like to add,
Okay.
signage for the security cameras has not been installed. Signs are on order. So we should probably be getting them end of this week, beginning of next week. So as soon as we receive them, they will be installed on the building.
Would they extend to, say, the gas and the diesel tanks? Or would you just be looking at the main office in case you get somebody that comes in and is unruly? You know, I mean, I was just wondering where your key places are for these cameras.
So the idea, yes, so for our municipal building, down the road when we are installing security cameras, the idea is, so the cameras will be installed on the building, pointing certain direction. I think for the budgeted amount that we had, the $20,000 would probably cover between 10 to 12 security cameras. So basically that will be the view will be determined by the basically by the installer and verified with staff, basically which area we want to focus on, and we want that need to be captured.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, could I have the recommendation, please?
That the Council of the Municipality of West Elgin hereby receives the report from Magda Badura, CAO Treasurer, brief video surveillance policy and procedure, and that the Council of the Municipality of West Elgin approves the video surveillance policy and procedures attached to this report.
A mover, please. Teresa? Shell seconded. All in favour? That's carried. 11, committee and board reports. Council reports from committees. Is there any? Yes, please.
I believe that this week or next week, the fair prize book is going into printing. So this year, unlike in previous years, we are planning to send the prize book home with all the kids in June, which is earlier. So other than that, I think the fair is all planned and ready to go. Oh, and we have saved the date cards, people.
Okay, thank you. Is that it? Okay. So we go straight on to 12, which is accounts.
That the mayor and treasurer are hereby authorized to sign payment voucher number 5A amounting to $309,721.87 in settlement of general road, water and arena accounts, including EFT number 6678 to 6706 online payments number 1165 to 1167, and checks number 26181 to 16182, and payroll PP 10.
Everybody had their questions answered?
And I'm sorry,
If they
that-
need,
I made a typo. That should be 26181 to 26182.
okay.
Sorry about that.
So everybody's had their questions answered beforehand, which is good. And can I have a mover for that, please? Michelle? Bill? All in favour? It's carried. Council inquiries and announcements. Notice of motion. Statements, inquiries by councillors. Yes, please.
Thank you. I'd first like to thank the many members of our community who have come in and seen me over the past 2 weeks. On June 5th, the comment period for Bill 97 concludes. I'm encouraging our local community members and council to reach out to their local MPP. This bill, under the guise of building more houses, would allow for 3 multi-lot residential developments on rural lands and severances of agricultural land for residential lots. If this policy is passed, it is believed that we could see upwards of 171,000 severances in Ontario. For an example, locally, if we were to take Thompson Line between Furnival and Kerr, we could see 30 new houses built. The ramifications of this would be felt across the municipality. This puts prime agricultural land at risk. The bill, like many this government has introduced, is vague, leaving many to wonder what control local municipalities and our planners will have. It removes the opportunity for neighboring farms to voice opposition or appeal any decisions that are made if their neighbors choose to add 3 lots. I would strongly suggest that members of this community take the time to read through the many articles, voices of opposition, and the bill. I'm gravely concerned about the effects that this bill, along with Bill 23, will have on the municipality of West Elgin.
Thank you very much for that. That's a very good point in actual fact. So I hope people will reach out to their MPs. Thank you. Okay, so we go to 14, bylaws. Bylaw 2023-39, that's ZBA 21179 Clafton Road. Recommendation, please.
That bylaw 2023-39 being a bylaw to amend the municipality of West Elgin comprehensive zoning bylaw number 2015-36 for property located at 21179 Clafton Road, be read a first, second, and third and final time.
Mover, please. Michelle. Teresa, seconded. All in favour? It's carried. 14.2, bylaw 2023-40, borrowing bylaw.
That bylaw 2023-40 being a bylaw for municipal borrowing of current expenditures be read a first, second, and third and final time.
Mover, please. Michelle. Bill, seconded. All in favour? Carried. Okay, so we go on to 16.4. Oh, 16.2. Oh, the borrowing bylaw. That's 2023-40 the borrowing bylaw. Recommendation, please.
That bylaw 2023-40 being a bylaw for municipal borrowing of current expenditures be read a first, second, and third and final time.
Mover, please. Teresa. Bill, seconded. All in favour? It's carried. This one now. 16.3. the bylaw 2023-41, Arvi Drain Construction. Assurance of debenture.
That bylaw 2023-41 being a bylaw to authorize the issuance of debentures in the principal amount of $35,381.12 for the construction of the Arvi drain be read a first, second, and third and final time.
Just done that one. A mover and a seconder, please. A mover, Michelle. Teresa, seconded, all in favour, it's carried. 16.4. Bylaw 2023-42, amending bylaw purchasing policy.
That bylaw 2023-42 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 2017-20 purchasing policy and procedures be read a first, second, and third and final time.
Mover, please. Bill. Teresa, seconded. All in favour, it's carried. 16.5, 16.5, a bylaw 2023-43, declaring the office of deputy mayor vacant. Recommendation, please.
That bylaw 2023-43 being a bylaw declaring the office of the deputy mayor vacant be read a first, second, and third and final time.
A mover, please. Michelle. Teresa, seconded. All in favour, it's carried. 16.6, bylaw 2023-44, video surveillance policy.
That bylaw number 2023-44 being a bylaw to adopt policy AD 4.1, video surveillance policy be read a first, second, and third and final time.
Recommendation, please. So I've got that. So Michelle as a mover, seconded by Teresa. All in favour, it's carried. Seventeen, confirming bylaw. Recommendation.
That bylaw 2023-45 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the regular meeting of council held on May 25th, 2023 be read a first, second, and third and final time.
Mover, please. Bill. Michelle, all in favour, it's carried. And that brings us to adjournment. Recommendation, please.
That the council of the municipality of West Elgin hereby adjourns at 11:01 a.m. to re-meet again at 9:30 a.m. on June 8th, 2023, or at the call of the chair.
A mover. Teresa. Michelle, seconded. All in favour? It's carried. Thank you very much.